Imagine this. All your life you dreamed of power. The crown, the sword, the army, all yours. And finally, the day comes. You are proclaimed emperor, but only for 20 minutes. Yes, you heard that right. One of the shortest reigning emperors in history sat on the throne for just 20 minutes, and then either gave up the crown or lost his life. In today's video, we will talk about who was he? Why did he rule for only 20 minutes? Was it betrayal, fear, or simply fate? And most importantly, what is power really? Let's begin. So, who was this man? The person we are talking about today is someone you will not often find in school textbooks, yet his fate surprises everyone who hears it. He was not a glorious conqueror, nor a dictator who ruled for decades. He was simply one of the shortest reigning emperors in history. His name is rarely mentioned next to the great rulers of the world. There are no grand movies about him, no giant monuments in his honor. But there is one thing that makes him unforgettable. His rule was not measured in years, it was measured in minutes. He was not a prince raised for the throne. He was not trained since childhood to wear the crown. Instead, he was pushed onto the throne in the middle of political chaos, public unrest, and ambitious generals fighting for power. For one brief moment, people saw him as a savior. For one brief moment, the crown touched his head, and just as quickly, everyone turned away. During his reign, he built no great walls, passed no great reforms, and led no legendary wars, because he had no time, only 20 minutes. In those 20 minutes, he was both an emperor and a prisoner of fate. Today, we will not only say his name, we will ask the real question behind his story. Sometimes a man becomes an emperor, but does he truly rule his own life? Our story's main character is Luigi Luis II di Savoia, known as the 20-minute King of Italy, and other rulers who experienced a similarly short reign. The short-lived emperors of history. The day he was brought to the throne, the entire palace felt different. Halls were decorated with flowers, the light of candles trembled on marble walls, and outside thousands of voices were shouting, "Long live the emperor!" Yet in the middle of all that noise, he felt a strange silence inside himself. The priest holding the trembling crown slowly walked toward him. As he climbed the steps to the throne, he felt the cold marble beneath his feet, and for the first time he wondered, "Am I really ready for this?" The moment the crown touched his head, the hall exploded with applause, cannons, music. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was congratulating him. But in his eyes, there was something else. Doubt. Perhaps at that moment he understood that he was not only wearing a crown, he was carrying the weight of an entire country. Inside the palace, generals avoided eye contact. Ministers whispered to each other. Servants hurried nervously through the corridors. Beneath the celebration, a hidden truth could be felt. Power was given, but not truly accepted. When he leaned back on the cold throne, its weight seemed to press on his shoulders. On one side, cheering crowds; on the other, shadows already preparing to remove him. And only one thought crossed his mind. Will this crown be my greatest chance or my end? He did not know yet that the reign before him would not last for years, but only 20 minutes. In the first minutes after the crown touched his head, everything still looked perfect. Applause filled the hall, music echoed through the palace, smiles were everywhere. But only a few minutes later, the air inside the palace began to change. A messenger rushed through the golden doors, leaned toward the emperor and whispered something into his ear. His face turned pale. It was not good news, because beyond the walls of the palace, a very different reality was unfolding. Uprisings had already begun in several cities. A number of generals had withdrawn their loyalty. The parliament refused to recognize his rule. The crown had barely settled on his head, yet the throne was already shaking. Then the next blow arrived. In the hidden corridors of the palace, generals gathered around maps, their voices sharp as knives. This emperor cannot be protected. The people will not accept him. If he doesn't step down now, blood will be spilled. One of them walked into the hall without bowing, without ceremony, without hesitation. He spoke only one sentence. "We cannot keep you on the throne." The hall fell silent. The music stopped. Even the flames of the candles seemed to shrink. The emperor touched his crown, and for the first time he realized it was not made of gold. It was made of fear. From outside came the deep rumble of unrest. Crowds shouting, soldiers moving, palace gates slamming shut. He now faced a choice: war and rivers of blood, or the abdication of the throne. Images flashed through his mind. The people, children, burning houses, collapsing cities. And he said quietly, "A crown is not heavier than the blood of my people." After those words, everything happened like lightning. The crown was slowly lifted from his head. The hall did not cheer. No music played. No one smiled, because everyone understood. It was not only the end of an emperor, it was the end of a destiny. His reign did not last long enough to write laws, to build armies, or to fill chapters in history books. His entire rule consisted of a breath, a glance, just 20 minutes. And perhaps the most painful question is this: what is the shortest reign in history? A lifetime of dreams, compressed into 20 minutes. The moment he stepped down from the throne, everything changed. Men who had bowed before him no longer dared to look into his eyes. The corridors of the palace suddenly felt longer, emptier. Every footstep echoed like a heavy reminder of what had just happened. The crown was no longer on his head, yet the weight of it was still on his shoulders. When he was led out of the throne room, there were no celebrations anymore. No music, no applause, only silence, and the distant murmur of unrest behind closed doors. Some say that on that very night he sat alone in a small room for hours, saying nothing. He showed no anger. He cursed no one. He simply whispered, "Sometimes power is not freedom. Sometimes it is only a chain." There are many versions of what happened to him afterward. According to one version, he was sent into exile, to a distant place where his name was never spoken again. Another version says he was arrested as soon as he left the palace. Quietly removed from the stage of history, his fate sealed in silence. A more romantic version tells a different story. After giving up the crown, he tried to live as an ordinary man. He never revealed who he once was. He became the man who bought bread at the market, who walked by the sea at sunset, a simple, invisible figure in the crowd. But no matter which version is true, one thing does not change. He did not enter history as one of the longest ruling emperors, but as one of the shortest. His name was not written in thick chapters, but in small footnotes. No statues were raised for him, no palaces named after him. And yet, he left behind one powerful question. What is truly more valuable? A long reign built on blood, or a reign of only 20 minutes that refused to spill it? Perhaps he was not the unlucky emperor at all. Perhaps he was one of the quietest heroes in history, a man who walked away from a crown to walk away from violence. History does not always remember the strongest. Sometimes it remembers those who made the right choice. His story reminds us of this. A man may become an emperor, but the greatest power of all is the power to let the crown go. This story is not just about the fall of an emperor. It is about the true face of power. We often imagine the crown as a golden reward, palaces as places of happiness, and the throne as the ultimate peak of strength. But this story shows us that a crown is a weight, a throne is responsibility, power is not always freedom. Sometimes it is a chain. The 20-minute emperor leaves us with a question. Who is truly stronger? The one who spills blood for a crown? Or the one who gives up the crown so that blood is not spilled? His story teaches us that it is not the throne that makes a person great. It is the choices they make. He did not remain in history for great conquests, but he left behind a powerful lesson. Destroying lives for power is easy, refusing violence is difficult, and perhaps that is why his 20-minute reign is more meaningful than some reigns that lasted 20 years. Because history does not only remember those who win, sometimes it remembers those who know when to step back. This story reminds us of a simple truth. A man may become an emperor, but if he can still remain human, then he has truly won. And that was the story of the emperor whose reign lasted only 20 minutes. A reminder that power is temporary, but choices are forever. If this story made you think or gave you chills for even a second, Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, would you choose the crown or would you walk away from it? More forgotten stories of history are coming soon. See you in the next video.